Are you troubled by strange noises?
Came out a 6-foot black silhouette of a cowboy with a cowboy hat. He had a duster on.
You said there's lights in the sky?
Yeah, there's 4 lights. It's moving real slow. Real slow.
It's showtime.
The Emit Blackwell Show, diving into the creative minds of sci-fi, horror, fantasy, and paranormal authors. Their fantasy is our reality. Hi, this is Emit Blackwell. I'm back again, and I'm here with 2 co-authors, Geoff Habiger and Coy Kissee. They wrote 2 novels, The Wrath of the Fury Blade and Unremarkable. How you guys doing out there today?
Doing good.
Great. Thanks for having us on.
Oh, no problem. We appreciate you guys coming. So, The Wrath of the Fury Blade. This is a fantasy novel. Geoff, where did you get the inspiration for this?
So the inspiration for the story and everything started from my built out of our experience of doing role-playing games, designing role-playing games and everything. And out of that, I kind of had the idea, a very simple question that I asked myself. In a fantasy world filled with magic and monsters and all sorts of nasty critters and big adventures and things like that, how do the police solve crimes? And that was my basic idea that I started from.
That's great. I like that. So, as far as the premise of the book, what happens in this first book that you have?
So, in Wrath of the Fury Blade, it is a story that focuses on our main character. Her name is Riva Lunaria. She is a constable inspector. For anybody who's familiar with the English in the UK, the way the cops are set up over there is equivalent to somebody who would be like a detective inspector on one of the TV shows or in one of the stories written over there, and everything. So she's a cop, basically, and she has just been assigned a new case. Somebody has gone about and killed somebody important. He is the first magistrate to the king, basically a king's advisor, and he has been killed in a very unique way. He's been cut in half, and if it's easy to cut somebody in half, he's done it the hard way, cutting this person in half from top to bottom, head to groin, and
Wow.
and everything. So she's been assigned the case, and assigned to the case on her day off of everything else as well. So it's not a very good day for her. On top of that, her longtime partner that she worked with had to leave, went in to go be with family in a different city. And so she has just been saddled with a new partner. And Riva has basically just feels that her new partner is not up to snuff, basically from the beginning and
Wow.
everything. So that's the premise. I mean, so we have a dead body and a crime to solve and everything. And so as the story moves along, Riva must work with her partner. Her partner's name is Ansi Karya, and they are a partnership. And in this world, as a world of fantasy and magic, it is a partnership of basically cop and magic user. Ansi is a spellcaster. He's a magic user. And when the criminals use magic, you need to be able to have magic to be able to find them and everything. So that's a big part of the storyline and the premise for the world that we've created and stuff. So on top of this, working with a new partner, trying to find a killer, they get some, I don't really want to call it assistance because it's probably not, but the king's secret police, they're known as the Sukra, they get involved as well. And the member of the secret police who is part of this, his name is Elan Malthasi, and he has his own agenda as to what's going on and why he's trying to find the killer as well and stuff. So lots of different parts going on and everything. And as the story progresses, more bodies show up. and everything. And so pretty soon they have a serial killer that they're trying to track down and stop.
All right. Well, I got a question for you again, Geoff. This is kind of attached to what the premise of the book is. Now, because she has to deal with this partnership, okay, is that kind of reflective of the co-author partnership that you and Coy have?
I hope not.
Well, hey, either way you
That's
go.
actually a pretty good point.
Yeah.
Well, I'll let Coy answer that because
Yeah, so there is some partnership dynamic between Riva and Riva and Ansi that is somewhat a mirror of the relationship between Geoff and myself. I find that I identify personally with Riva's character very strongly, and I believe Geoff has said in the past that he has identified pretty strongly with Ansi's character. So it's kind of an interesting dichotomy that we have this partnership of characters to go along with our partnership of authors.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. I mean, drawing on your own experiences to write is a perfect way to build up characterization. And Coy, how did you and Geoff meet? Like, when did this whole kind of partnership of writing come about?
So we initially met back in high school. Geoff was a year behind me in high school, and we met through games, through role-playing games, and have been friends ever since. Regardless of, wherever across the country he's wandered and meandered to, I've always been able to, keep in touch, and we've always been able to try and get back together whenever we can. And so when we decided to, start trying to monetize, some of our ideas, it was only natural that we got together to work as a partnership.
So, and that's another question I have, and this one's for Geoff. Geoff, you're where now?
I'm currently living in the Albuquerque area, New Mexico.
Yeah, and Coy, where are you at?
I'm in Lenexa, Kansas. It's a suburb of Kansas City.
Okay, so now when you guys came together for this collaboration, did you do it strictly over the internet, or did you actually meet face to face for some of this?
Both. We did a lot of the initial stuff on FaceTime. So we did a lot of editing and re-editing and polishing over FaceTime because that was an easy way to be able to get together. But we have gotten together, from time to time in person when we can. It's just a much more expensive option.
Okay, yeah. Now, you guys have another book out, co-authored by both of you. It's called Unremarkable. Coy, can you give me the premise of what this one's about?
Sure. So Unremarkable is a story set in 1929 Chicago, based around the events of the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. And our main character, Saul, he's an everyman. He's a nobody. He works for the post office. He just got a new job recently. He has a new girlfriend that he's head over heels for. And on St. Valentine's Day, he and his girlfriend get caught up in the gunfire at St. Valentine's Day Massacre. She ends up dying, and he gets caught up in a conflict between Al Capone, Bugs Moran, and the feds, all of whom want something from him, and all he wants to do is protect his family and himself.
Oh, so there's quite a bit of historical fiction in that then.
Yes.
Yes.
There's also one extra aspect to it in that on top of everything else in the events of the book, Saul comes to find out that vampires are not just the stuff of legend.
Oh, that is cool. So there is a vampire twist.
Yes. So we categorize it as supernatural historical fiction because it is based on historical characters and historical events, but a dramatized version of those events with a supernatural twist.
Yeah, and kind of similar to The Wrath of the Fury Blade that combines two different genres together. That's amazing. I like it. I like it a lot. So
yeah, we're trying to find niches that don't exist and fill them.
Yeah, exactly. Just make them up as you go along. I mean, it's the best way to do it. So now the inspiration for Unremarkable, where did that kind of originate from? Was it a love for the 1920s and things like that, 1930s?
So honestly, it's funny. I mean, I personally have had an interest in history and everything, but the inspiration for the story, the idea, actually came about back in 2010. It happened to be the 13th wedding anniversary for both of us, for myself and my wife, and Coy and his wife. And we actually took a couples weekend to Chicago, and everything, and just had fun. We had a blast up there, and everything. Went and saw the sights and did a whole bunch of stuff and just had fun, and everything. And we drove back then. So we drove up there from Kansas City and drove back to Kansas City. And on the drive back, it's a long drive from Kansas City to Chicago and back. And we just started talking like we usually do, about stuff. And I'm pretty sure our wives were in the back just rolling their eyes at us.
Well, yeah.
That's pretty much a constant whenever we get together.
Yes, pretty much. But we started talking, and we were talking a bit about, gangsters and events and stuff, and talking around like the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, and how, a lot is known, but a lot is unknown about that particular event and everything. Nobody still to this day really knows who ordered the hit, and everything. A lot of people say it was Capone, but there's no evidence. Nobody's ever come forward and said that they did it or who the actual gunmen were, and everything. And so there's a lot of mystery there and stuff. And so we started talking about it, and it's like, on top of that, we were talking about our other love of, kind of supernatural horror type books around vampires and stuff. And the two ideas just kind of coalesced and gelled, and everything. Is what if the St. Valentine's Day Massacre was a hit to cover up supernatural creatures, vampires, and everything, and stuff. And that kind of started the idea rolling and everything. And we just kind of went from there, and built on the idea of, what would be going on. And Coy then came up with wanting to tell the story from a particular perspective of the everyman, somebody who is just like everybody else, who gets caught up in these massive events.
And actually, I'm looking here on Amazon.com, because you can find both of your books on Amazon.com, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and I'm actually looking at the reviews for Unremarkable, and if you don't mind, I'm going to read one here so our listeners can understand what type of response you're getting from this. One of the purchasers actually had written a review on this, and let me read it for you. It says, intensely vampiric. I love a good vampire story. It has to be well written and not hotkey, and this story was one of the better ones that I have read. The story takes the reader back to the 1920s Chicago and is full of gangsters, mayhem, and what else? Vampires. I enjoyed this story, really liking Saul and his connection to the elusive Moria. Great story. So when it comes to the reviews that you guys are getting, I'm seeing that you have 5 stars across the board, which is amazing. And to see, independent authors come out of the woodwork, put out a book, and they get 5-star ratings, it's very good. And this right here, with your guys' combination, your collaboration abilities, this isn't the first time that you've collaborated on something. You guys also had a game business. Geoff, could you tell us a little bit about the Tangent Game business?
So Tangent Games was a company that Coy and I started back in 2004. It was right around the time that D&D 3rd Edition had been out for a couple of years, and everything. And we have always had ideas and everything. Going back to high school of, just card games and things like that and stuff. And we have been avid players of card games and board games and everything else under the sun as well. And there were plenty of times where we would spend afternoons playing a game and then discussing what we liked about it and what we didn't like about it and how we would do things differently, and everything. And so around 2004, we finally decided to do something about that, as opposed to being the sideline, sitting on the sidelines, actually getting onto the field and trying to do what we wanted to do, and everything. So we built a kind of a model, decided that we would want to do something. At that point in time, Wizards of the Coast had their open game license for Dungeons and Dragons and everything, which allowed a lot of small publishers, authors, and everything to write material for the core rule set and everything, and make it available to people.
Yeah, when it comes to Dungeons and Dragons, if you talk to anybody who is a player, they will tell you that was like some of the best times, some of the best writing, some of the best story arcs that they, can remember. It was that time when they opened it up. So that's good that you guys were kind of a part of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so we started and did, role-playing supplements. We created our own campaign setting, which is called Eidos Land of Strife, which became, at least one part of it became the campaign or the setting, the world that we created for Wrath of the Fury Blade, as well. We did some adventures that we created. We created an entire religion, or we built that up and put out a book about it as well as then just supplements and little things here and there, little accessories for them and stuff. Around that time, we started developing card games. We put out a couple of card games. One is a very fast-paced family-style game called Bankruptcy. Why should CEOs have all the fun of running a company into the ground? And it's a fast-paced, fun, just kind of, beer and pretzels kind of game, and everything, just to be able to just kind of light and just waste some time, and everything. The other card game that we designed is called Quackery. It's the game of medieval medicine, and that one's a little bit more strategic in outlook and stuff, but still a lot of fun and humor to it and everything. And then since then, we've also put out an expansion for Quackery. There's an expansion set for it as well. And in between there, we have designed other card games and board games and gotten them to various stages and then gone to work on something else and everything. And a lot of it just comes along to finances and being able to find, not put ourselves completely into debt while we do this and everything and stuff. But we still enjoy it. I mean, we still have game ideas and game design that we're trying to do and everything. It's just a matter of finding the time. It's a little bit difficult to do that, more difficult to do that over, like FaceTime and stuff than the writing and everything. So.
Yeah, and the collaboration that you guys have, like I've said before, it's a very good collaboration. And some authors, they will back away from doing the co-authorship, which in a lot of ways can be pretty sad, because obviously you guys jive pretty well together. You can come up with ideas, bounce them off each other, and then co-author things. And Coy, I'm going to ask you this. What are some of the benefits that come from doing co-authorship and co-partnership when it comes to dealing with your projects?
So the biggest benefit that you can possibly get from a collaboration is when two people have complementary skill sets. So Geoff's strength lies in the creativity and being able to state his words on paper, essentially. Whereas my strengths are more from character voice, continuity of character, editing, proofreading, and making sure that, there's a cohesive story that's not just a jumble of words on a page.
Yeah. Trying to keep them in line a little bit. I got you.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So, and Geoff, what are some of the benefits you see from this co-partnership that you guys have?
What Coy just said is a big part of it. But for me, the other part of it is having that sounding board to bounce ideas off of, to sit there and go, what about this? What should we do here? Or, I've gotten the characters to this point, what needs to be done and everything. And having that kind of ability to basically talk out loud and have somebody respond and go, no, we should be doing this, or this is how the character needs to be portrayed, is very, very helpful, and everything. A lot of authors always talk about the dreaded writer's block, and everything. And I don't feel that way. I don't feel that I ever have one of those, because if I get to a point where I'm not sure if what I want to do next or anything, I just have to bounce the ideas off of Coy, and we just talk about it and hash it through and get through that part and everything. And that makes the process so much easier and fun to do, and everything. And just the collaboration part of it is just fun. So.
Oh yeah. And so, Geoff, another question here. What advice would you give for any new authors that are out there?
Right.
Yeah, that's the first step, right?
That's the first step. But I mean, it's said a billion times, and I've seen a billion memes for it and everything. They always say, write every day and write this and write that and stuff. And I'm not going to be somebody that preaches you need to write every day, that you always have to, it's a job and you've got to do that and stuff. Write what you want to write and everything. Get your ideas onto paper, onto a computer screen, on your tablet, voice them out, and everything. Do digital recording and do it that way and stuff. But just get your ideas out, and you don't need to do it every day, but be consistent at it. Don't be afraid to make mistakes and keep going and everything. When you're writing, you don't write a little bit and then go back and go, oh, this is crap, write it again, and doing that constantly, because then you're never going to get anywhere. You're just essentially spinning your wheels. Yeah. Write that first draft, get it all the way through, and everything. And don't worry about things like grammar and spelling and all of that kind of good stuff, because you can fix that.
Yeah, but not everybody has a Coy.
No. But there are so many resources out there, and everything, through various different groups that you can join, whether it's a local writers group or an internet writers group. And I've joined several of them. I've been members of local groups here that meet in person for many years. I've been on several online writers groups as well, and everybody there is great. They're friendly. They want to help. Nobody is putting anybody down. Everybody is there to support everybody else. And I think the biggest thing that authors need to understand is that you're only considered an author once you've let other people read it. Yeah. And that's a scary part. But once you do that, you're going to get feedback from people and everything. And not all of that feedback is going to be positive, but as long as it's done right and it's constructive, you'll learn from it and you make improvements. And by doing that, what you're also doing is building up a relationship with similar like-minded people. And so once you've put your thing out there, and have it published, or however you're going to do it, even if you're just going to post it to a blog page or something like that, and everything, people are going to support you, and they're going to shout out for you and everything and stuff. But none of that will happen until you sit down and start putting the words and getting your ideas out and everything. So just to kind of show that it doesn't have to take every single day. It took us 7 years to get Unremarkable written and everything. It was not a continuous process. I would write it and leave it and get back to it. And a lot of that just had to do with life, real work, real jobs, and everything, and everything. But then, writing it some more, coming back to it, and everything. And some of that helped, just because I would reread as I went back to it to start writing again, because I wanted to make sure I knew where I was leaving off.
Yeah, exactly.
And that always usually helped make sure I was staying consistent with my story, and everything. So, so it doesn't have to happen overnight. I say that, and I know an author who can pound out a 55,000 word novel in like 10 days, and everything. But I'm not that kind of person and stuff. So.
Yeah, and I'm going to ask you too, Coy. What advice would you give to a budding author out there?
Don't ever get discouraged. Don't make it work for yourself. If it's something that you enjoy, then that is its own reward, regardless of if it's a financial success, regardless of if it ever sees the light of day. If it's something that you feel the need to do, and you feel the need to have this finished product to show that, hey, I was able to accomplish this, regardless of what anyone else thinks, regardless of how it does in public, makes absolutely no difference. You're bulletproof. You did what you set out to do. That's the main message I would want to send.
Yeah, and that's kind of the whole goal of this show, too, is to get those authors out there and let them know that, hey, the independent market is growing, and the ideas are original. And from what I can tell, you guys have a great partnership. You guys are able to write, and I look forward to seeing the second book for The Wrath of the Fury Blade. And I will go ahead and post both of the links in the description of the YouTube video. And actually, Geoff, would you mind emailing me some of the links or some of the group names that you have that you work with?
Sure.
Yeah, that'd be great, because that'd be something that the new authors would love to see, too. They can get involved, and they can have a virtual Coy that they can go ahead and start bouncing ideas off of. So I want to thank you both very much for being here tonight.
Oh, we appreciate it.
It's our pleasure.
All right. And once again, that was Geoff Habiger and Coy Kissee with their books, The Wrath of the Fury Blade and Unremarkable. Once again, thank you so much for joining us here on the Emit Blackwell show. We will be doing another show at the end of the week, a couple of shows at the end of the week. And thank you very much, and you all have a good night.
Are you troubled by strange noises?
Came out a 6-foot black silhouette of a cowboy with a cowboy hat. He had a duster on.
You said there's lights in the sky?
Yeah, there's just 4 lights. It's moving real slow. Real slow.
It's showtime.
The Emit Blackwell Show, diving into the creative minds of sci-fi, horror, fantasy, and paranormal authors. Their fantasy is our reality.